This is Big Dumb Football. I am Spencer Hall, and I am here with Bomani Jones. And today I would like to dispel one tiny little shred of a myth, and that's this. I don't know. We missed on this draft. It's fine. We'll just go to free agency and develop players. If you find yourself saying this at any point in this draft process, either this year, next year, or in the future, you are a sucker. Because guess what you could do in the draft? You can have a 2011, which is rife with Hall of Famers, Pro Bowlers, just amazing players up and down, guys who would define a decade, not just a couple of years, but a decade of performance. Looking back on this 2011 draft and looking at the talents that we either judged absolutely correctly, underestimated, or just plain overestimated and missed on. I want to start with Cam Newton. Cam Newton sitting up here at the top spot. I want to know, was he worth it? Like, this may sound like a crazy question, but I do want to outline it. All right. Did we all get our money's worth out of Cam Newton?
Yeah, here's what's so crazy about it. Because the reason it's a fair question to ask is because there were a lot of really good edge rushers in this draft. And so you could make an argument that a top flight Hall of Fame edge rusher is a better play than the Pro Bowl MVP level quarterback. Like, there's maybe a discussion to be had. I'll just say this. I would make the argument defining an entire franchise for 7-8 years, which is really what it was. Yeah, worth it.
Mind you, they drafted Cam Newton and then never drafted an offensive lineman again. So just remember, he did all of this with no protection up front whatsoever. Also, valid question, because we're talking about those two edge rushers. If you do not remember, we will remind you in the next 10 picks we have at 2, Von Miller.
Yes.
Okay. That would be Super Bowl 50's MVP and would be, I think, the unquestioned number one edge rusher of his era, were it not for the number 11 pick down out of Wisconsin, Mr. J.J. Watt. I want to say that again, just to drive it home to everybody who might be listening to this. J.J. Watt and Von Miller were in the same NFL draft and within 10 picks of each other.
And hold on. And in between those two picks was Alton Smith, who had more sacks than anybody after 2 seasons in NFL history.
Really, 3 guys up there who all could have been a difference at edge. And I think I'm still saying Cam was worth it. I'm just going to say that. I am biased. Okay. But I'm going to make this argument against 2 other picks who are also here. 2 quarterbacks who are in the top 10 here. Jake Locker out of Washington and Blaine Gabbert out of Missouri. I think this was a point in time, Bo, where franchises were struggling to figure out what college football was throwing at them offensively. They were struggling to figure out how to adapt these guys who were playing in spread offenses, or at least offenses that had very easy sort of spread 1-read, 2-read looks. And they were trying to figure out what they were going to do with them in the pros. And I'm going to say this. Cam at the time represented just as much of a risk as Jake Locker. Like, when you looked at them in terms of pro compatibility, I don't think at the time it was that clear of a decision.
Nah, except it was the clearest decision of all time. And it was the only reason it's the clearest decision of all time is this. Cam Newton had 2 things going for him. 1, look at the mother. Just look at him, okay?
Yeah.
Number 2, the single greatest college football season a quarterback has ever had. And I remember when that draft came up, I was like, there's nobody else in this draft that makes me willing to pass up the possibility of what this guy could be. And here's what's crazy about it. We look at that draft, and if we look at the top 16 picks, we can run through them all later, but the top 16 picks, there were only 4 guys who did not make Pro Bowls, and 3 of them were quarterbacks that teams reached to get.
Gabbert, I'll give you. Notice, by the way, I didn't say Gabbert when we were discussing this. I thought
you did not. You did
there.
You did not. But then don't forget Christian Ponder, who, much to my surprise, wound up going in the first round of any draft, let alone that one.
This is, by the way, peak Jimbo gets him paid era. This is the point where if you were...
This was when we knew. This was when... We thought we knew, and then E.J. Manuel went in the first round, and then we knew.
Yeah. In the second round, after we have taken Blaine Gabbert and Jake Locker, there is Colin Kaepernick. I would like to revise history a little bit and say this, that Kaepernick, taking those 2 over Kaepernick in retrospect, given what he had shown at Nevada, I am the college guy here predominantly. this to me was like not a question of whether you should take him or not. He ran like a deer. He was huge. He had a powerful arm, maybe not touch, but had a powerful arm. And he gets taken in the second. Like he's there as well.
After Andy Dalton, by the way, the Bengals had the chance. And look, the Andy Dalton pick, as far as value goes,
solid.
They kind of knocked that one out the park. They just got a guy that you can never win with. But it was the Bengals, so they were going to never win anyway. Like I could understand why they weren't really going to press that issue. But this is a fair question to ask about it. If they do this draft again, given the kinds of guys that people are into at this point, is Kaepernick really lasting until the second round? Because the thing that I remember that I misjudged about him being taken in the second round that didn't really hit me until he got the job in San Francisco is you draft starters in the second round. If you take a quarterback in the second round, it's because you believe that he is going to be a starter. And when Alex Smith got concussed and missed that game, it never dawned on me that Kaepernick was going to take his job. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. The plan was always for him to take the job. But a guy that big with those skills that he had, and let us not forget, a big win that a lot of people were aware of to close out his senior year where they stopped the Boise State, Pat Forty called it the bus. And when everything cracked off with Kaepernick in 2016, they had signs in Boise that said that we hated Kaepernick before it was cool, which was a little disturbing, but also hilarious.
I mean, really, the only people I think who have a super legitimate beef with him are Boise State fans, who I will not question that. Well, I'm like, that's true, because that was the greatest Boise State team ever. They were bound for like almost like they were going to be at least a national title contender by argument. They might not have gotten to the game, but they had the resume and they had the reputation, and they blew it on a windy night in Reno.
Yeah, but he'd have been a first-round pick. And the reason I say, if nothing else, he'd have been a first-round pick was by then we had seen the pistol and stuff like that being used in the NFL. We didn't see the pistol really getting broke out in the NFL until we saw college.
That's right. That's right. By the way, astonishing team, 2,000-yard rushers in the backfield. Kaepernick was one of them. Vitawa was the other. Immense fan of that 2011 Nevada team. There is a player in this draft who defies, I think, one of our sort of or at least one of my rules about the draft, which is don't overpay for a wide receiver. Don't overpay for a wide receiver, Bo. That's a skill player. Heck, you could trade down and get a guy out of the MAC. You could get an Antonio Brown, somebody who was relatively unheralded and ends up being a guy who, according to PFF, has the highest WAR, the highest value over replacement, right? Like of any player at his position. You know who number 2 was, though, for the past decade from 2011 forward? That is correct. That is somebody who, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the Atlanta Falcons made a great decision. The Atlanta Falcons traded a bucket of picks for one Quintorris Lopez, a.k.a. Julio Jones.
That's right.
Alabama. I think we can agree. There is some debate as to whether teams did the right thing or didn't do the right thing, whether we could have changed the path of franchises, right? This was a banger. I think this is 100% worth it in every single way, even with 28-3 there, because nobody's been better at that position for as long over that period of time, other than maybe Antonio Brown, okay, who statistically I think compares or exceeds him. Nobody was better than Julio.
I also think, though, that we do have to be fair and acknowledge that part of the reason why that trade looks so good is that the Browns made that trade look so bad for themselves. I want to say they took Greg Little, Brandon Wheaton. I forget who else they took with those picks that didn't turn into nothing.
I have names for you, and they will make this such a richer narrative.
And those two were correct, right?
Well, you have Phil Taylor. Phil Taylor is the defensive lineman who played about 44 games before falling out of the league. Fullback Owen Maricic. Yeah, Owen Maricic out of Stanford, all right? I'm not going to hate on you for taking a fullback out of Stanford, particularly of that particular Stanford football lineage. I will go ahead and point out, Owen Maricic is not Julio Jones. Therefore, I can clown you for that. And quarterback Brandon Whedon, they also took him out of Oklahoma State. If you remember him, he got lost under a flag. That's what I remember about Brandon Whedon.
That did happen. He was also 48 years old.
Yep. Listen and respect. If you want to know why Brandon Whedon should be a Hall of Famer, I'm about to make the argument. First 52-year-old to start at quarterback in the NFL in the 21st century. Shouts out to you, Brandon. Love you.
Satch Page. That's what he was. He said, we got to start calling cats like him Satch. Like Michael Penix, you might be Satch.
Should have walked up dispensing all kinds of old-timey dietary advice like avoid fried foods that anger up the blood. They packaged those picks in 2012 to trade up for, do you remember who?
They traded up in 2012. I do remember that was to take a gentleman named Trent Richardson.
That is correct. That is correct. And spoiler, that didn't work either. That didn't work at all.
To be fair, they got him out of there for a first-round pick. They did sell high.
They did. They sold high. Okay, I know Browns were making fun of you. Credit where credit is due. You suckered someone else on the way out. Well done. By the way, this is all great for Julio, because Julio not only looks like, all pro forever, great at wide receiver. Okay. But I think has an argument that he is the best player in Atlanta Falcons history. And that is saying something, because they've had some talented dudes, even with the malign fortunes of that franchise. But also everything that was done to get him looks foolish in retrospect. By the way, Nick Fairley gets drafted, another guy who I swore, were it not for health issues, okay, he was pretty good as a pro, curtailed by health issues and some off the field stuff. A guy who, if he was healthy and maybe made a few other decisions, a phenomenal talent who I think could have played a decade in the league.
And you're also talking about edge rushers, which gets us to the number 14 pick, the guy taken after Fairley, Robert Quinn, who has been defensive player of the year level good at points. I think he has a 19 sack season somewhere, and quietly a story you could make a movie out of. Kind of surprised nobody did, right? The brain tumor in high school. Now that we got a different attitude about the NCAA, we look at that whole thing at North Carolina a little bit different, and was an excellent pro, and just not Von Miller or J.J. Watt. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. That's your only crime in this draft, is being exceptional, not being the most exceptional.
Justin Houston's in the third round, by the way, just waiting for you to talk about him. He had a 20-something sack season once.
This is the draft where you have Mike Pouncey out of Florida coming in at center for the Dolphins, a dude who just, all he and Tyron Smith at the 9 spot, all they did was start games and beat ass. That's all they did. You have guys in this draft who, a unique talent, and Patrick Peterson, okay, a guy who could take an entire half of the field and give you special teams reps. A guy going at 5. You have versatile talents all over the place. I want to get to our fifth rounder out of Stanford, a guy who switched positions, was kind of an odd fit, but nevertheless had great potential. Richard Sherman.
That's right.
Out of Stanford. Yes, Richard Sherman, who ended up being the best at his position for a decade, defining the attitude of an entire franchise, all for a 5th rounder. Yes. All for a 5th rounder.
In that same draft, they got KJ Wright and they got Doug Baldwin. They didn't draft Doug Baldwin. They just got him. He was just there sitting on the curb after the draft was over. And right. They made that happen just like that. And keeping in mind, the best part of it is there was a Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh rivalry at the time, right? And what we didn't realize is there was also a Richard Sherman, Jim Harbaugh rivalry at the time. And so Pete Carroll drafted Richard Sherman, who Jim Harbaugh had nothing good to say about, which honestly, for all I know, Richard Sherman might not have gone into the 7th round until Pete Carroll found out that Harbaugh did not like Richard Sherman. Then he's like, oh, no, we'll take him right now.
Took him. This is also classic Pete Carroll draft strategy, which is when he picks somebody, you go, oh, he got that guy? Yeah. Every time as a college football guy, I'm always like, ooh, he's nasty. How did he get down there? Yeah.
Yeah. Pete Carroll's all about drafting guys that he didn't get on signing day.
100%.
Oh, Percy Harvin's available. I think we need to get him in here.
I remember Reggie Bush stood him up for his official visit, which is an actual story. Get out of either one of them, that for his official visit, the escort was supposed to be Reggie Bush at USC, and Reggie did not show. And that is why one of the reasons why Percy ended up going to Florida. Sometimes Pete, by the way, doesn't sign guys that doesn't draft guys that he signed, aka the Taylor Mays thing. All waiting for Taylor Mays to go, and all of a sudden, just sitting there on the curb. No one wanted him.
I'd also like to know for you, right fast, Percy Harvin in that part of Los Angeles. It's a really good thing that he went to Gainesville, Florida.
That's saying to the safety and the bucolic tranquility of Gainesville, Florida. I want to ask about a couple of other guys in this draft, a couple of other things that happened. There is a phenomenon. This is one of the first weird Bill Belichick drafts. One of the ones where Bill only wants weird ingredients when he goes to the grocery store, and dang it, he got all of them. It's not their fault that a lot of them didn't end up working out. There were some uncontrollable off-the-field circumstances, but the names alone, Razai Dowling, Shane Vereen, Stephen Ridley, Ryan Mallett, the recently departed RIP Ryan Mallett, and Marcus Cannon. These are all guys who didn't work out. Was this like the first sign that maybe Bill Belichick wasn't quite as sharp an eye for talent as we thought?
Well, I think that was the first sign from the recollection. It wasn't so much that he drafted guys that didn't work out, because that happens with everybody, but he was drafting dudes that nobody else was thinking about drafting.
Yeah.
Right. But if I'm not mistaken, it may have been the year after he took Chandler Jones in a place where nobody was thinking about him. And clearly that was a great idea. But this is where he finally felt like he had the nerve to just be out here like, yeah, I don't care if nobody else has ever heard of this guy. Yeah, I was the only person to show up to his workout. We're going to take him. Like, that was when the ego really kicked in, which is also interesting to consider that they were in the midst of a Super Bowl drought. They hadn't won one since 2004, and this is 2011, and they didn't win another until 2014. Our producer is saying is this is when we learned the value of the rookie contract. But what we have to remember is this is the draft that invented the rookie contract. Sam Bradford was the last bonus baby. This was the first time that these guys were on these 5-year deals. And, like, basically Cam Newton in the previous era is not a starting quarterback, because that dude was so raw that you take the time but I guess they had Jimmy Clausen. They couldn't keep doing that. You know what I mean? But
that's a pull.
Yeah.
That's a name.
Yeah. Jimmy Clausen is ironically like Eddie King in the 5 Heartbeats. Like, he really is looking at Cam in a very twisted, diluted way. How does it feel to be me? Because that's what Jimmy Clausen was supposed to be.
Yeah. This is also, by the way, in addition to proving the value of the rookie contract, because there were so many people, Cam got the Panthers to a Super Bowl. By the way, if anyone says that he wasn't worth it to the Panthers went to a Super Bowl and we cared about the Panthers. Done. Right. Next. Right. Von Miller gets a Super Bowl. Let's see, Richard Sherman, along with the rest of the Legion of the Boom, on his rookie contract, they're winning a Super Bowl. Kaepernick, don't forget, Colin Kaepernick is in a Super Bowl versus the Baltimore Ravens.
Yards away from winning it.
Close. And then J.J. Watt, who in his first 5 years went bananas, absolutely bonkers at his position.
Hold on. DeMarco Murray won a rushing title in like an old school rushing title way, like 1,800 yards, something crazy like that kind of season.
Yeah, 100%. This is very much a young Tykes league after this point. What I also wanted to say was this.
Jason Kelce, by the way, can't forget about him. He's really famous now.
Good God, Jason Kelce's in this draft. It on and on and on. So again, don't think it doesn't matter. Don't think you can recover. Don't think you won't get absolutely mushed up by somebody who went ham in the draft like these teams did. Go pray to your GMs, or for your GMs, more appropriately.